Hey, what's up guys? So today we're going to be talking about The Amazing Spider-Man number 17. I will be talking about the story itself, so of course spoilers, just as a heads up. If you haven't read the story and you want to know what happens before you hear me talk about it, then probably do so right now. But if you do want to just follow the story along through me, then that's also cool. Otherwise, without further ado, let's begin. So the story begins with these two demons from Limbo that are talking to each other. They're both wearing suits to sort of simulate Daily Bugle workers, and one of them tells the other that he better have those expense reports today, otherwise it's his butt. And he's sort of like having a good time pretending to be human. And the fact that he's having a good time pretending pisses off the other demon. And mind you, this other demon just looks like a shark. And he's like, "Is this fun to you?" Starts getting really angry at him and grabs him by the tie forcefully. And Peter Parker's off in the distance and he sees this and he yells just like a parent trying to calm down his kids. And he's like, "Hey, what did I tell you guys about biting each other's heads off?" The shark demon lets go of the demon that he was holding on to and immediately rushes off to attack Peter Parker. And he's like, "I can't take it anymore, wearing stupid human clothes." And of course, because our boy Peter, he's a badass, he just punches him in the face and the shark runs off, complaining about his teeth that get punched off. And Peter's like, "I didn't even hit him that hard. I guess you guys don't floss down here." And then he asks the demon that was having a good time pretending to be human if he's okay. But he's baffled. He's like, "Oh, you saved me, but that wasn't your job." Of course, Peter's like, "Yeah, sorry, force of habit. But anyways, I gotta get back to work. Otherwise, I know what will happen if I don't." And as Peter Parker's walking away, this demon's like, "Hey, aren't you that meat they call Parker Pete Man?" And he responds with, "Close enough." This demon, oh man, he's basically the main character of the comic. And they show how happy he is right now. He's like, "Oh, Parker Pete Man." And then we cut over to the actual workday itself. Since we're in the Daily Bugle in Limbo, like I said, every worker gets replaced with like a monster from Limbo. And they're all trying to force Jonah to just be like angry. They're all trying to force Jonah to basically act how he used to in the older comics, where he's more like, you know, just an angry guy. The guy you typically expect when you think of J. Jonah Jameson. Nowadays, he's more of a calmer dude. He's not particularly attacking Spider-Man anymore, because this comic specifically does make it a point that he knows Peter Parker is Spider-Man. So anyways, one of the demons goes up to Jonah and he's like, "Now you yell at him, John man. Tell him you want tasty pics of Spider-Man." And he's like, "I want pictures of Spider-Man." And the demon's like, "Tasty pics. I said yell, and I said tasty pics, John man." So the next panel is just Jonah like yelling, trying to be angry, while also crying his eyes out. He's like, "I want tasty pics of Spider-Man, Parker. Do you hear me?" And all the demons in the background are just like losing it, cheering him on, just because he's yelling finally. And Peter's just standing in the crowd of demons and he's pretty mad that they're forcing his friends to do this. Next is after work and Peter Parker's walking home and he encounters Ben Reilly. Chasm does stop him and question him about how hard his day is, but Peter Parker's not having it. He's just like, "Stop this, man, just release all of them." Then Chasm reverts back to trying to have Peter Parker just outright eat the apple from 3 issues ago. Peter of course knows what that's for. And he's like, "No way, man, I know what you want and I didn't steal from you." Chasm just replies with, "Just take a bite and your friends can go home." Peter Parker doesn't give up and he just replies with, "I'm not playing along, Ben. You won't break me." Chasm does go off and he's like, "I'm being nice. I could always just force this down your throat." Peter Parker is smart, of course, and he's like, "I don't think you can, or you would have done it already. I think I have to eat it willingly, which means I have to give up. And if you're waiting on that, you really have lost your mind." Chasm does reassure him that he's never leaving. Peter does say, "I don't plan on asking for permission." And that's how their encounter ends. And then we move over to this random building where we have these demons that are being transformed into different versions of what Spider-Man fights. So like just Scorpion, for example, there's just a demon version of that. And of course they do go by different names. It's established here that Ben Reilly just wants to spice things up for Peter Parker. He wants to create demon versions of, you know, the typical enemies he usually fights, so that he feels at home in Limbo. So he ends up creating the Insidious Six. Like I said, he does create a Scorpion version. He makes a Doc Ock version, a Green Goblin, a Rhino, a Kraven the Hunter, a Lizard. They do have their own names. I'm just not going to try to pronounce that right now. But just to give you an idea, they're just demon versions of the characters that he usually fights. But anyways, a random demon pops up, the 7th one, and he's like, and the Insidious Six's mortal enemy, Parker Man. Can I get some of those powers you're handing out now? And it's that demon from earlier that Peter Parker saved. Instead of wearing a suit this time, he's just wearing underwear and like a Spider-Man PJ shirt that's just like ripped up, and like sweatbands around his wrist. This is like the most goofiest introduction to a brand new character, but I dig it. Madeline sees this guy and she's like, this is not a great use of my time. I have guests of my own. Good luck with all this. And Chasm responds with, we don't need someone playing Parker. Sorry, Madeline. And starts walking over to this guy dressed up as Peter Parker, Spider-Man, you know. And he's like, you have it backwards. We need villains, not heroes. And the little demon that's just dressed up as Spider-Man in his underwear is like, unhand me, fools, because he's being held back by the other guys. But he manages to escape, and he just yells, Parker Man lives to fight another day. And you just see Chasm in the background. You have it backwards, man. It's great. It's stupid great. I like this. And we move over to J. Jonah Jameson, who's just hanging out in his bedroom. Everything is alive, including his bed, and his bed starts trying to get freaky. This does weird him out, which is, of course, common sense. But then he hears a tapping on the window, so he goes over to look, and it's Peter Parker. This is where Parker starts hashing out a plan to escape. He talks about how there has to be a way for them to just easily leave. If there's demons entering Earth some way, he's got to figure out that method and just leave that same way. So he tells Jonah that once he gives off his signal, they're gonna try to make a run for it. And we skip over to see what's happening with our demon that's dressed up like Spider-Man. He's just walking down the sidewalk, sniffling, crying, saying, stupid demons, I am a hero. And as he's walking along, there's this doorway that's opened, and he encounters that magical demon from Venom number 13. And it's established here how that demon is just somehow related to this demon. And they show off how he's still holding on to that little bit amount of symbiote matter that Venom ended up handing off to him. Using that symbiote matter, he adds a little bit of magic to the Spider-Man shirt that he was wearing and drops it into the test tube with the symbiote matter, and it starts reacting. The matter then escapes from the tube itself and just engulfs this demon, and through the process he's just laughing it off. Then we skip over to the very next day at the Daily Bugle in Limbo. Jonah's trying to convince the demons that are working there to sort of look the other way, but of course he's just trying to trick them. He starts telling them how there's a big juicy story, and the story itself is there's some demons that are being allowed to go into Earth to just basically cause havoc. And he starts playing to their enviousness. And Jonah starts telling them how, hey, you guys would rather be here pretending to be humans every day instead of causing havoc, right? And they're like, yeah, true. And then Jonah goes, now I'm looking for a few brave reporters to shine a light on this injustice. Reporters who will sleuth and investigate, but never join in on these heinous actions, which we've all agreed would be no fun at all. And then we get a panel of just all the demons looking at each other like, which one of us is gonna go? So they all just start running out the door immediately. Robbie goes, I can't believe that worked. What about Peter Parker? And this is where Spider-Man shows up from the window and says he was able to make it out, but don't worry, he's sent for me. Which leads me to believe that Robbie himself doesn't know who Spider-Man is, but Jonah does, which is kind of funny because in the original comics, Robbie was one of the guys who was first starting to get suspicious over Peter Parker being Spider-Man. But they just inevitably ended up dropping that plot line directly after Captain Stacy unalived. But anyways, that's something else. Spider-Man starts leading his homie Jonah and Robbie out to safety when Jonah points out to him directly behind him is the Insidious Six. Spider-Man looks over and he's not very excited over what he sees. And one of them's like, do you have the bravery to face the Insidious Six? Spider-Man just is like, sure. More or less, the next 2 pages are Spider-Man just getting beat up, only to introduced on the final blow that he was about to take, a new character. Right as he was about to get hit by one of them, he gets saved by the new character. Who's this new character? You remember that demon that ended up getting helped by Spider-Man in the very beginning and dressed up as Spider-Man? Well, yeah, that magic and symbiote turned him into like this super buff, huge guy dressed up as Spider-Man. And this new character is named Rek-Rap. R-E-K Rap. And he says, they said they didn't need another Parker. That had it backwards. So say hello to Rek-Rap. Which, just now, as I'm saying this out loud, I just realized that his name is just Parker spelled backwards. No wonder it sounded super weird. But that's how that story ends. This particular issue, as ridiculous as it was, I honestly thought it was pretty fun. There's a lot of questionable aspects about it, for sure, but it works in a way where just specifically for me, it's just ridiculous fun. You know, they really dropped the ball the previous 2 issues that this particular one, just because of how weird and dumb it is, it actually makes it pretty fun. At this point, the story isn't to be taken too seriously, so I had some fun with it. Still though, as an overall story between all these issues, it still seems a little weak, but there's not much I can do about that, except just hope for better. So now we have a version of Spider-Man from Limbo. I just thought it was kind of funny how we followed the story of just this character that gets saved by Peter Parker. It was very similar to the Amazing Spider-Man #2, the movie. Similar thing happens in this one. He gets saved by Peter Parker, but instead of turning evil, he sort of gets inspired by him. And then he meets up with his relative who's like, yeah, I bet you're wishing you should have joined the magic business, right? And we watch this demon evolve into a Limbo version of Spider-Man. Pretty dumb, fun, ridiculous nonsense for sure. I was just very glad there wasn't too cringy of dialogue. Like, this dialogue was kind of cringe, but it was like I keep saying, it's fun, but it wasn't unbearable like the previous 2 issues. So there's that. And that part with the bed that wants to try to get it on with Jonah, oh man, that was so weird. There was also that one part where Chasm just sees this demon walk out in like underwear and a Spider-Man shirt, and he looks like he's walking over to him with like a belt. Like he's about to just beat this dude. I thought that part was hilarious. Just dumb fun for sure. But anyways, I appreciate you guys for listening to me talk about The Amazing Spider-Man #17. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.